Queen Zaratil stood on the crystal balcony of her palace, watching the twin moons of Zeldar rise over the capital city. Her purple skin shimmered in the moonlight, and her 4 arms moved gracefully as she adjusted her ceremonial robes. As ruler of the Veltai Empire, she commanded respect across 3-star systems, but tonight she felt strangely nervous. Tomorrow would mark 1 year since her marriage to the human diplomat Marcus Chun. The union had been arranged to seal peace between their species after decades of brutal war. Most of her advisors had opposed the match, calling humans weak and primitive. They argued that these bipedal creatures from the small blue planet called Earth had nothing to offer their advanced civilization. Zara had agreed to the marriage purely for political reasons. The Veltai Empire needed access to human trade routes, and the humans desperately wanted to avoid another war with their technologically superior forces. She expected to marry a soft, scholarly diplomat who would stay in the background while she ruled. Marcus had surprised her from the moment he arrived. Unlike other alien ambassadors who cowered before her 8-foot frame and razor-sharp claws, he had looked her directly in her 6 eyes and smiled warmly. He spoke her language fluently and showed genuine interest in Veltai culture. During their formal courtship period, he never once complained about their customs or tried to change their ways. The wedding ceremony had been magnificent. Marcus wore traditional Veltai ceremonial armor that had been specially crafted to fit his smaller human frame. He performed the ritual combat dance perfectly, despite having only 2 arms instead of 4. When they exchanged vows, his voice carried clearly across the vast throne room without any amplification technology. In the months since their marriage, Marcus had proven to be an ideal companion. He was intelligent, respectful, and surprisingly knowledgeable about military strategy. He often joined her council meetings and offered insights that impressed even her most skeptical advisors. He learned their customs quickly and never made her feel embarrassed about their differences in public. But Zara had begun to notice strange things about her human husband. During their private dinners, she watched him lift massive stone chalices that normally required 2 of her own powerful hands. When they walked through the palace gardens, he moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost supernatural. His reflexes were incredibly fast, and his endurance during their long state functions never seemed to fade. The most puzzling incident had occurred 3 months ago. An assassin had somehow infiltrated the palace during a state dinner. The Veltai warrior had burst through the great hall doors, wielding an energy blade that could cut through diamond. Zara's guards were still reaching for their weapons when Marcus moved. She barely saw him cross the room. One moment he was sitting beside her, calmly eating his dinner. The next, the assassin was unconscious on the floor, his weapon shattered into pieces. Marcus had returned to his seat and continued eating as if nothing had happened. When she asked him about it later, he simply said he had learned some self-defense techniques during his diplomatic training. Her security chief, General Carvex, had been suspicious of Marcus from the beginning. The grizzled old warrior often made comments about humans being deceptively fragile and warned her to be careful. But lately, even Carvex seemed confused by Marcus's abilities. Last week, he had mentioned seeing the human lifting combat training weights that should have been impossible for his species to handle. Zara's thoughts were interrupted by soft footsteps behind her. She turned to see Marcus approaching with 2 cups of her favorite spiced tea. Even in casual clothes, he moved with that strange, controlled precision she had noticed. His brown eyes were warm as always, and his smile made her hearts beat faster. "Beautiful night," Marcus said, offering her a cup. "The moons remind me of Earth's moon, except we only have one." "Marcus," Zara said, accepting the tea gratefully. "May I ask you something personal?" "Of course. We're married, after all." His laugh was genuine and relaxed. "What exactly did you do before becoming a diplomat?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the city lights below. When he turned back to her, his expression was thoughtful, but not evasive. "I served my planet in various capacities," he said carefully. "Diplomatic work was just my most recent assignment." Zara studied his face, noting how his muscles tensed slightly despite his casual tone. There were depths to Marcus Chun that she was only beginning to understand, and she had the feeling that her supposedly simple human husband was far more complex than anyone realized. The emergency alarm shrieked through the palace halls at dawn, jerking Zara from deep sleep. Her communication device crackled with urgent reports from the border systems. The Kethmori raiders, a notorious pirate fleet, had attacked 3 Veltai mining colonies simultaneously. Worse yet, they were demanding an enormous ransom and threatening to execute the hostages if their demands weren't met. Zara rushed to the war room, her ceremonial robes replaced with practical combat armor. Her senior military advisors were already assembled around the holographic tactical display, their faces grim. The Kethmori had chosen their targets well. The colonies were too far from the main fleet for immediate rescue, but too valuable to abandon. "My queen," General Carvex reported, his scarred face set in hard lines. "They've taken nearly 10,000 civilians hostage across the 3 colonies. Their fleet consists of at least 40 ships, including several heavy cruisers. Our nearest battle group is 6 days away at maximum speed. What are their demands?" Zara asked, studying the tactical display. 50 million credits worth of rare minerals, plus safe passage through our territory for the next 5 years, Admiral Thylana answered. "They want the payment delivered to the abandoned space station at Grid Reference 7, Alpha 9. Marcus entered the war room quietly, dressed in simple diplomatic robes. Zara noticed that her advisors barely acknowledged his presence. They still saw him as just the Queen's foreign husband, irrelevant to military matters. He moved to stand beside her chair, studying the tactical display with intense focus. "The station is in the Void Nebula," Marcus observed, his voice calm. "Perfect hiding place. Sensors can't penetrate the interference, and it's easy to defend." Admiral Thylana looked surprised that the human had spoken up. "That's correct, Lord Marcus. It makes any direct assault nearly impossible. What about a small infiltration team?" Zara asked. "A few elite commandos could potentially disable their ships from within." General Carvex shook his massive head. "Too risky, my queen. The Kethmori use bioscanners that can detect any known species. Our people would be identified the moment they try to board." Marcus stepped closer to the display, manipulating the holographic controls with practiced ease. The advisors exchanged glances. Few beings outside the military knew how to operate their tactical systems so smoothly. "What if the infiltration team wasn't a known species?" Marcus asked quietly. "I don't understand," General Carvex replied. Marcus turned to face the assembled officers. "The Kethmori have never encountered humans in combat situations. Their scanners wouldn't recognize human biosignatures as a threat. They'd assume I was just another piece of cargo or a slave worker." The war room fell silent. Admiral Thylana was the first to speak, her voice incredulous. "Lord Marcus, with all respect, this is not a diplomatic mission. The Kethmori are savage killers who show no mercy. A single human against 40 ships of pirates would be suicide," General Carvex finished bluntly. "My queen, I cannot allow your husband to undertake such a mission. It would be his death and accomplish nothing." Zara felt torn between her duty to her people and her growing concern for Marcus. The logical part of her mind agreed with her advisors. Sending her human husband against an entire pirate fleet seemed like madness. But something in Marcus's expression made her hesitate. "What exactly are you suggesting?" she asked him. Marcus manipulated the display again, highlighting the station's structure. "The Kethmori will expect either a frontal assault or payment. They won't expect a single operative to infiltrate their base and disable their ships from within. I could plant explosives on their engine systems, taking out their ability to escape before your fleet arrives. The timing would have to be perfect," Admiral Thylana said, despite her obvious skepticism. "Our forces wouldn't reach the area for 4 days. "I only need 3, Marcus replied. "1 day to reach the station, 1 day to complete the mission, 1 day buffer for extraction." General Carvex stepped forward, his 4 arms crossed. "Lord Marcus, I've fought the Kethmori for decades. They're not soft merchants or politicians. These are hardened killers who've survived countless battles. Even our best warriors proceed carefully against them." Marcus met the general's gaze steadily. "I understand the risks, General, but those colonists don't have time for a conventional rescue. Every hour we delay means more innocent people die." Zara studied her husband's face. There was something different about him now, a quiet confidence that seemed almost predatory. The gentle diplomat was still there, but underneath she sensed something much more dangerous. "Marcus," she said carefully. What makes you think you can succeed where our trained commandos would fail? For a moment, his mask slipped completely. The look in his eyes was cold, calculating, and utterly lethal. It lasted only a second before his usual warm smile returned, but everyone in the room had seen it. Because, my love, Marcus said softly, the Kethmori have never fought anything like me. Admiral Thylana and General Carvex exchanged worried glances. Zara realized that her supposedly harmless human husband had just volunteered for a suicide mission with the calm confidence of a seasoned warrior. Whatever Marcus had done before becoming a diplomat, it hadn't involved sitting behind a desk. Against all military protocol and her advisor's strongest objections, Zara approved Marcus's mission. She watched from the palace hangar as he prepared for departure, still unable to believe she was sending her husband to face an entire pirate fleet alone. General Carvex had provided him with basic equipment, a small stealth ship, some explosives, and a standard sidearm, while muttering about human stupidity under his breath. Marcus moved through his preparations with mechanical efficiency. Gone was the diplomatic smile and casual demeanor. He checked weapons, studied ship schematics, and planned infiltration routes with the precision of someone who had done this countless times before. When he thought no one was watching, Zara saw him performing stretching exercises that looked more like combat forms than simple preparation. Marcus, she called as he finished his equipment check. Promise me you'll be careful. He walked over and took her lower hands in his, a gesture that had become familiar over their year of marriage. But now she noticed the calluses on his palms and the scars on his knuckles that she had somehow overlooked before. I'll come back to you, he said simply. Trust me. The stealth ship departed quietly, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to sensors within minutes. Zara returned to the war room to monitor communications and coordinate with the approaching battle fleet. For the next 36 hours, there was only silence from the Void Nebula. Then, the reports started coming in. The first message was from a Kethmori patrol ship near the nebula's edge. Their transmission cut off mid-sentence during a routine check-in. Admiral Thylana initially dismissed it as equipment failure. The nebula interfered with communications regularly. 6 hours later, a second patrol ship went silent. By the third ship, General Carvex was pacing the war room floor, his scarred face creased with worry. My queen, something is happening out there. 3 ships don't just disappear from technical problems. Could Marcus have reached them already? Zara asked. Impossible, Admiral Thylana replied, checking her calculations. He should still be at least 12 hours away from the station. These patrol ships are scattered across a wide perimeter. The 4th ship disappeared just before dawn. This time, they managed to pick up a partial transmission through the interference. The message was broken and filled with static, but they caught fragments of panic shouting about a ghost and impossible speed before the signal died. Zara felt her heart's racing. Whatever was happening in the Void Nebula, it was beyond anything her military advisors had expected. The calm confidence Marcus had shown before departure suddenly made sense in a way that terrified her. General, she said quietly, what exactly do we know about human military capabilities? Carvex paused his pacing. According to our intelligence files, humans are a relatively young species with basic technology. Their warriors are brave, but physically inferior to most galactic races. They rely on numbers and tactics rather than individual strength. Those files were compiled during the war 20 years ago, Admiral Thylana added. And most of our encounters were with their regular military forces, not their special operations units. Special operations? Zara repeated. Every species has elite units, my queen, the Admiral explained. Small groups of highly trained warriors used for difficult missions. We assumed human special forces were similar to other species, perhaps slightly better trained than average, but still limited by their biological constraints. The 5th patrol ship's destruction was different. Instead of simply going silent, it broadcast a brief message that chilled everyone in the war room. The transmission was clear and spoken in heavily accented Veltai. This is Captain Mordak of the Blood Fawn. Something is hunting us in the nebula. It moves like a shadow and strikes without warning. We've lost 5 ships in 2 days, and we never saw what killed them. The crews were found dead at their posts with no signs of weapons fire or boarding actions. Whatever Earth sent after us It's not human. The communication ended abruptly. Long-range sensors detected the ship's explosion moments later. General Carvex stopped pacing and stared at the tactical display. My queen, I've fought in over 200 battles across 40 years. I've never seen anything like this. One operative eliminating trained pirates without leaving evidence? It's impossible. Maybe, Admiral Thylana said slowly. We don't know humans as well as we thought. Zara studied the display showing the nebula, where red markers indicated the destroyed ships. They formed a rough circle around the space station, as if something was systematically clearing the perimeter before moving to the main target. The precision was terrifying. What if, she said quietly, Marcus wasn't chosen as a diplomat because he was harmless? What if he was chosen because he was the most dangerous person Earth could send, disguised as something safe? The implications hit everyone in the room simultaneously. If Marcus was some kind of elite warrior rather than a simple diplomat, then their marriage hadn't been just a political arrangement. Earth had placed one of their most dangerous assets directly beside the Veltai throne, and no one had suspected. My queen, General Carvex said urgently, if your husband is some kind of human super soldier, we need to know what else Earth might have hidden from us during the peace negotiations. Before Zara could respond, another transmission crackled through the interference. This one was different, calmer, more controlled, and definitely from the main station. This is Pirate Lord Vexwrath to the Veltai fleet. We know you're coming, and we know you sent something after us. Call off your assassin immediately, or we start executing hostages. We've lost 8 ships to this shadow creature, and our patience is gone. The transmission paused, then continued with barely controlled fear in the Pirate Lord's voice. What did you send? What kind of monster can kill 30 pirates without making a sound? The main screen in the war room flickered to life, showing a grainy transmission from inside the pirate station. Pirate Lord Vexwrath, a massive reptilian creature with cybernetic implants covering half his face, stood before a group of terrified Veltai civilians. His troops, usually confident raiders, huddled nervously around their weapons. You have 6 hours to respond, Veltai Queen, Vexwrath snarled at the camera. Call off your demon, or these people die. And don't think you can negotiate. We've seen what your monster can do. 8 of my ships destroyed, crews killed without a trace of the attacker. This ends now. The transmission cut off, leaving the war room in tense silence. Zara stared at the blank screen, her mind racing. The confident, diplomatic husband she thought she knew had somehow become a legend of terror among hardened pirates in less than 2 days. My queen, Admiral Thylana said hesitantly, we should consider the possibility that Lord Marcus has been captured or killed. These demands could be an attempt to buy time while the pirates prepare for our arrival. General Carvex shook his head grimly. No, if they had captured him, they would have shown us his body to prove their power. The fact that they're this frightened means he's still out there, still hunting them. But how? Zara asked. How can one person terrorize an entire pirate fleet? The Kethmori have survived battles against our best military units. Her question was answered an hour later when they intercepted an internal communication from the station. The transmission was meant for Kethmori ships scattered throughout the system, but the pirates' encryption was old and easy to break. All units maintain constant patrol patterns, came Vexwrath's voice, now edged with panic. Keep weapons powered and scanners at maximum range. The creature strikes when ships are alone or when crews are relaxed. It disabled our main sensor array last night, killed the entire engineering team, and vanished before our response teams arrived. Another voice, younger and clearly terrified, responded, Lord Vexwrath, the crews are talking about abandoning their posts. They say it's not natural the way it moves through the station. Security cameras show empty corridors 1 second, then dead guards the next, with no sign of the attacker. Any ship that flees will be destroyed by my personal guard, Vexwrath roared. We don't run from one alien, no matter how clever it thinks it is. The transmission ended, but not before they heard sounds of distant explosions and screaming in the background. Zara felt a chill run through her body. The gentle human who had shared her bed for a year, who had learned her language and customs, who had made her laugh during diplomatic dinners, was systematically destroying a pirate stronghold like some kind of unstoppable force of nature. General, she said quietly, I want you to access all human military records from the peace negotiations. Find out everything Earth told us about their special forces. Carvex worked at his console for several minutes, his expression growing darker as he read. Finally, he looked up at Zara with something approaching awe. My queen, there are references to human super soldier programs in the classified sections, but most of the details were classified above our clearance level. What we do have mentions individuals with enhanced physical abilities, advanced combat training, and psychological conditioning that borders on the superhuman. Enhanced how? Admiral Thylana asked. Strength, speed, endurance, reaction time, pain tolerance, and tactical thinking all improved through genetic modification, cybernetic enhancement, and extreme training protocols, Carvex read. According to these files, a fully trained human special operator can function for days without sleep, survive injuries that would kill normal beings, and eliminate targets with efficiency that defies conventional military doctrine. Zara sank into her command chair, overwhelmed by the implications. Earth sent us their ultimate weapon disguised as a diplomat. But why? If they wanted to assassinate me, Marcus has had countless opportunities. Perhaps, Admiral Thylana suggested carefully, the arrangement was genuine. They wanted peace, but they also wanted insurance. By placing one of their most dangerous assets as your husband, they ensured that any future conflicts would be complicated. The tactical display suddenly flashed with new activity. Long-range sensors detected multiple explosions inside the nebula, concentrated around the space station. The pattern was systematic, methodical, like someone working through a checklist. Then, Marcus's voice crackled through the communication system, calm and professional. Palace Control. This is Infiltration Team Alpha. Primary objectives complete. Station defenses are neutralized, and main fleet is disabled. Beginning hostage extraction. Recommend battle fleet maintain current approach for cleanup operations. Zara grabbed the microphone, her hand shaking slightly. Marcus, what's your status? Are you injured? There was a pause, then his familiar warm laugh came through the static. I'm fine, love. Just finishing up some work. The pirates won't be bothering our colonies again. Marcus, she said urgently, the entire pirate leadership is terrified of you. What exactly did you do out there? Another pause, longer this time. When Marcus spoke again, his voice carried a note of regret. I did what I was trained to do before I became a diplomat. I'm sorry you had to see this side of me, Zara. I hoped you never would. Before she could respond, Admiral Thylana pointed to the tactical display. My queen, look at this. The space station's power signature was fading rapidly. Secondary explosions bloomed across its surface as critical systems failed in cascade. In the space around it, dozens of pirate ships drifted powerless, their engines dark and their weapons offline. He disabled an entire fleet, General Carvex whispered in amazement. 40 ships, hundreds of pirates, all taken out by one human in less than 3 days. Zara stared at the display, finally understanding what Earth had really given her when they sent Marcus as a husband. Not just a diplomat, but a guardian. A protector who could eliminate any threat to their alliance before it could develop. The question now was whether the gentle, loving husband she had grown to care for was real, or just another layer of his cover identity. Marcus returned to the palace 3 days later, looking exactly as he had when he left, calm, composed, and showing no signs of the legendary terror he had become among the pirate fleet. The rescued colonists were safely back on their worlds. The Kethmori leadership was in custody, and their ships had been claimed as salvage by the Veltime military. Zara waited for him in their private chambers, uncertain how to feel about the man who was both her husband and, apparently, one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. When Marcus entered, he moved with that same fluid grace she had noticed before, but now she understood what she was seeing, the controlled movements of a perfect predator. Hello, love, he said, setting down his travel bag and moving to embrace her as he always did. I missed you. Zara accepted the embrace, but pulled back to study his face. Are you going to tell me the truth now? About who you really are? Marcus sighed and sat on the edge of their bed, suddenly looking older than his apparent 35 years. What would you like to know? Start with your real name and what you did before becoming my husband. Marcus Chun is my real name, he said quietly. Before I came here, I was Colonel Marcus Chun, commanding officer of the Terra Special Operations Division. What humans call the Shadow Corps, soldiers enhanced beyond normal human limits for impossible missions. Zara sat across from him, noting how his posture remained relaxed despite discussing what was clearly classified information. Enhanced how? Genetic modifications during childhood, cybernetic implants, psychological conditioning, 20 years of training in every form of combat known to humanity, Marcus listed matter-of-factly. I can function for weeks without sleep. My reaction time is roughly 10 times faster than normal humans, and my strength is equivalent to your average Veltai warrior despite my smaller size. How many others like you are there? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. There were 50 of us originally. Combat operations have a way of reducing those numbers over time. When I left Earth, there were 12 Shadow Corps operatives still active. Zara felt a chill at his casual mention of casualties. And Earth sent their most dangerous soldier to marry me. Why? Because, Marcus said, meeting her gaze directly, they needed someone who could protect the peace treaty from any threat, including threats that might emerge from within your own empire. Someone who could eliminate problems quietly before they became wars. Have there been such threats? Marcus nodded. 17 attempts on your life since I arrived, including the random assassin at the state dinner. Several plots by your own nobles to overthrow you and restart the war with Earth. 3 separate intelligence operations by rival powers trying to destroy our alliance. Zara stared at him in shock. 17? I only knew about a few incidents. Because I handled the others before they could develop into visible threats, Marcus explained. The Shadow Corps doesn't just eliminate enemies in spectacular battles. Most of our work involves preventing conflicts by removing key conspirators, sabotaging weapon shipments, or convincing dangerous people to pursue other interests. So our entire marriage has been a military operation. Marcus was quiet for a very long time, staring at his hands. When he looked up, Zara saw genuine pain in his eyes. It started that way, he admitted. I was ordered to marry you, gain your trust, and protect Earth's interests in this region of space. My feelings weren't supposed to be part of the mission. But, Zara prompted. But, you weren't what I expected, Marcus said softly. The intelligence files described a ruthless alien despot who ruled through fear and military might. Instead, I found someone intelligent, compassionate, and genuinely concerned about her people's welfare. Someone who treated me as an equal despite our obvious differences. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. Somewhere along the way, protecting you stopped being a mission and became personal. The Shadow Corps trained me to eliminate targets without emotion, but they never trained me for what to do when I fell in love with my assignment. Zara felt her heart skip a beat. Love. Marcus turned back to her, and, for the first time since his return, she saw the gentle diplomat she had married instead of the deadly operative. I love you, Zara. Not the queen, not the alliance, not the political advantages, you. The woman who stays up late reading technical reports because she wants to understand every detail of her people's needs. The ruler who personally visits disaster sites instead of sending representatives. The person who learned human customs so I would feel welcome in your world. How do I know that's not part of your training too? Zara asked. How do I know any of what you've shown me is real? Marcus smiled, and this time it was the warm expression she remembered from their first meeting. Because the Shadow Corps would never approve of what I'm about to do. He walked to his travel bag and removed a small device Zara didn't recognize. With practiced movements, he activated it and set on the table between them. That's a quantum communication link to Earth Command, Marcus explained. I'm about to resign my commission and request asylum as a political refugee. Once I do that, I'll be cut off from Earth permanently. No more orders, no more mission objectives, no more protection if something goes wrong. Zara stared at the device. You would give up everything for me? I already have, Marcus said simply. The moment I decided your safety was more important than my orders, I stopped being a Shadow Corps operative. I've been your husband first, and Earth's agent second for months now. He activated the communicator, and a holographic display appeared showing a stern-faced human general. Colonel Chun, the general said coldly. Your mission report on the pirate operation was impressive, but we're concerned about the exposure to your capabilities. Perhaps it's time for extraction and reassignment. Negative, General Morrison, Marcus replied firmly. I'm submitting my resignation effective immediately. I request political asylum with the Veltai Empire. The general's expression shifted to shock, then anger. Colonel, you're under direct orders to maintain your cover and continue the mission. Desertion is not an option. With respect, sir, Marcus said, my mission was to protect the Alliance. I can do that better as Queen Zara's husband than as Earth spy. He deactivated the communicator, cutting off the general's furious response. The device flickered once and went dark, permanently severed from Earth's command structure. There, Marcus said, turning back to Zara. Now, you know everything, and I've burned every bridge back to my old life. The question is, do you still want a husband who's more dangerous than your entire royal guard? Zara looked at this man who had just sacrificed everything for her, his career, his planet, his entire identity. The deadly Shadow Corps operative was still there, but underneath she could see the genuine person who had chosen love over duty. I married a diplomat who turned out to be a super soldier, she said finally. I think I can live with that, as long as you promise me one thing. Anything. No more secrets between us. If someone threatens our people, I want to know. If you have to eliminate a threat, I want to be informed. We're partners now in everything. Marcus smiled and moved to embrace her again. This time, Zara could feel both the gentle husband and the lethal protector in his touch, and she realized that having both might be exactly what their alliance needed. Deal, Marcus said. Though I should warn you, being married to a reformed Shadow Corps operative is going to make diplomatic dinners much more interesting. Zara laughed, feeling truly relaxed for the first time since learning about Marcus's secret identity. I think our enemies are the ones who should be worried about interesting times. Outside their window, the twin moons of Zeldar continued their ancient dance across the sky, watching over an empire now protected by the most unlikely guardian in the galaxy, a human who had chosen love over orders and proved that sometimes the greatest strength comes from knowing what's worth protecting.